Welcome to another episode of Behind the Dreamers. I'm Jennifer Loading, and we are talking to the achievers, the creators, the magic makers, and the dreamers. These are our friends. These are your friends, and they are living the extraordinary. Well, here we are, another episode, another fabulous guest coming on today. Super excited to welcome him on. Let me tell you guys just a little bit about him. So my guest today says he had the desire to have his own business from the time he was a teenager. Not sure where it came from. He says it took him 25 plus years to make it a reality. There was neither a defining moment nor evolution. He just wanted to make it happen. And so we're going to be excited. You guys are going to learn a lot of stuff from him today. Super thrilled to get him on here. But before we do that, I need to welcome our sponsors. So today's episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Photography. If you are a creator needing post-production, consultation, or promotion, Walt is your guy. Whether short films, YouTube films, photography work, or a new headshot, he can help you find a solution to match your needs. To learn more about Walt and his work, you want to go to photosbywalt.com. We also want to give a shout out to Chris Clow of Upbeat Media Productions. If you are in need of turnkey special events, Clow is your go-to. You can learn more about him and his work at upbeatmediapro.com. All right, so we need to welcome the guest to the show. Super excited to have him here today. Steve Stewart is the owner of Southern Comfort Mechanical, a company dedicated to delivering comfort to homes and businesses. And I've got here via maintenance, repair, replacement of HVAC systems. And that is important because we're in Texas and we need those things up and running for sure. So Steve grew up in Northern Ireland and said there wasn't much opportunity when he finished high school. So he began his journey in engineering. And with over 30 years experience, he's worked in various companies, including manufacturing plants around England. He's worked for Toyota on new model launches. And then he came to the States and worked for some companies here before going into entrepreneur space. So welcome to the show, Steve. We are so excited to have you here today.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Gonna be fun.
Yes.
All right.
Most definitely.
Yes, it's going to be fun. So I'm excited because you have had such I want to say kind of a unique career in a sense, right? Like I'm curious to know why air conditioning? How did this come about for you?
I would say air conditioning came about. So I would say when I got to that stage, whenever, it's time to make my own business a reality, I would say I couldn't afford to buy a factory. So then I looked around and trades is where I locked in at. And then I realized that all my experiences with the HVAC companies as a homeowner were less than desirable and I wouldn't wish them on anyone else. And that ranged from whenever I was in Cleveland, here in Dallas. So that's where I jumped into that space to build a company that I would like to work with as a homeowner.
That is so awesome. And, it's making me think about another guest that I had on my show at one point in the roofing industry. Same kind of thing, different story, obviously. But he had worked for a roofing company and he didn't like what he had seen in that industry and decided to create his own. He's doing very well now. And I've been following him for about the last 3-4 years. I think I shared his information with you, but he's just doing phenomenal. It was kind of the same thing where he saw what was going on in there and really just kind of wanted to change how that industry was going, right? Like put that in his own world. And so I think that's awesome. And it's funny with entrepreneurs because, in your bio, I said here, you knew that you kind of wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so all this time I guess back this up a second, when you were working in all these other places, doing this engineering and welding, all these things you were doing in the manufacturing, were you thinking at that time, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur? Were the wheels kind of turning at this point?
On and off, it varied or whatever. I would say, in each of those times I was focused on that company, that role that I was in. All the time I was learning, growing myself. Especially whenever I got into private equity, part of that was a experience or that role that I jumped into was partly, hey, I want to learn how to buy and sell companies. That was part of one of the things I wanted to get out of that experience, as well as have a bunch of fun doing turnarounds and all that good stuff, which would say fun being the operative word. But yeah, that was part of along the way. I was just, building and banking the skills, saying, if I ever have my own business, I'll make sure to do this, or that's a cool idea, and just making a mental note of it somewhere. Probably in the private equity was sort of part of that planned. It was stuff that I enjoyed doing, but also that buying and sell of a business to put me one step closer to my dream.
Yeah. And that is so different than what you were doing in your other space. You know, when you were working for like Toyota and Lucas and all that was kind of a different thing than this equity stuff, right? Am I correct?
Yes, that was.
Yeah.
I was a lowly engineer in the trenches, just working to make it happen, grinding it out.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think, I've often said that our paths are not linear. We sometimes travel down, like we'll go to school for one thing and then we sort of kind of end up traveling down a different direction, right? But it's really neat when you start connecting the dots and you look at the lessons that you learned in each of those places that you were at that time, right? You learn different skills and maybe you don't use every single skill set that you learned within that company or that organization, but there's always some takeaway in there that you can pull away from each of these that will line up and connect the dots into what you're doing today.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
It molds us along the way, which makes us all individual personalities and our own mental models of how we look at the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So now how long have you been in the entrepreneur space doing this air conditioning and the HVAC, all this stuff you're doing?
It's, I would say 5.5 years now since I purchased the company. So
very cool. Congratulations.
In sunny Louisville. Yep. So,
and you are a local business
every day.
Yeah. You're a local business here in Dallas. So just fun.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. So you're from Northern Ireland. You came to the States. I have a question for you. And this is one of my, I guess this may be where the challenge was. I don't know, because you moved here for work, right? You came to the States, you moved to Cleveland, correct? Okay. So maybe you can answer this question based on that journey coming from there to here, or you can base it on moving from kind of the corporate sector to the entrepreneur space. Maybe one of the biggest challenges that you had to overcome in this transition.
I would say, changing countries was interesting. Because in reality, you're leaving behind your family, your friends. I'm going to say life as you know it. I would say, what the supermarket is. So, the differences between the UK and the US, everything is the same, but everything is different. So things are subtly different. You drive on different side of the road, you're still driving the car. Supermarkets are different. Over time, all the brands and so forth have got pretty much the same. But at the time, I was learning the different supermarkets, which ones take, back then, credit cards, checks, those that were cash only. And so there was a learning process there. TV channels is like, where do you find stuff? American comedies are different. So it was just an evolution in terms of the move. So you could take it as a challenge, but, it was reality. It was part of the excitement. So it's just, hey, we're here, get used to it. It's life as we're going to know it. So just work through it. So.
Yeah. Well, and I just imagine, because I think, every time we have the conversation about, hey, we should sell the house and move somewhere, I start getting those heart palpitations thinking, oh my gosh, like I got to move. I got to change things. Like I got new stores around me, new people, new roads. You know what I mean? Like I start thinking about that. So I can only imagine, going from country to country, you would have to have this, we're going to embrace this. Like we're going to embrace this. We're going to make the best of it situation, and from looking at you and knowing you and, and getting in your space and learning about it, it seems like you're doing very well. You've done well. And so that's a good thing. It's a good thing. But I certainly can understand that there would be challenges navigating those little subtleties that are different between places. So.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you just work through them, and it's there. I think as you and I talked before, I call it thinking like a winner. You can be a victim, and everything gets done to you, and the world sucks, and it's not fair. Or you just say it's going to happen, so you just need to find a way from point A to point B and make it happen and get on with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and Stephen, I know that you're into a lot of personal development because you and I've had that conversation. And I think that is so unique I don't want to say unique to business owners, but when I'm thinking of air conditioning companies right now, and you guys are probably doing something very different than a lot of them out there, because you mentioned earlier about your experience that you've had, using other places in the past. And so going back to the fact that I know you're heavily into personal development, I know that's carrying over into your company. And so when did you, obviously you were growing in your companies, but when did you kind of make that shift and recognize that this extra stuff that we do, this personal development stuff, is huge important in our growth and how we navigate our businesses as leaders?
I would say it probably would say subconsciously came to me, I'll say back whenever I was with Lucas, I, was looking at, I don't know, I'm not mentioning any, but looking at leaders that were around me at that time, I'm able to say, well, I don't want to be a leader like that. I don't want to be a leader like that. So I was able to pick up on a bunch of those things I didn't want to be. I know subconsciously they weren't trying to be, bad leaders, bad managers or whatever, but, they had ramifications on people. So, it was just knowing that, hey, someday hopefully I get promoted, I'm leading teams, managing things. So I was, taking those things on board, to be, just subconsciously aware. So whenever I got into those roles, I wasn't able to repeat those things and, try and do something different. Not necessarily the right way, but, I knew, here's a bunch of things I don't want to do.
Yeah. And I think that's go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I think that's probably where sort of that personal development or awareness of, don't do this, don't do that, or whatever over those years, came out of it. Probably one of the big things that, upon reflection at one point, moving into leadership roles, earlier in my career and middle of the career, whenever I was having conversations around people about what needed to be done or change, I would try and tailor the message to each person, which meant, on aggregate, it probably wasn't clear and defined. And then I noticed once I started being very blunt and very direct, this whenever I was sort of in the C-suite, that was puts a smile on my face now whenever I think back of it. But whenever you weren't there and your name got used in, hey, something needs to be done, Stewart said it need to happen. I wasn't there, and I wasn't in that conversation to give that directive. But the pseudo Steve or the ghost Steve, was totally in line with what I wanted, versus years before, whenever I'd been a bit more, wishy-washy, whatever, things didn't happen. So I noticed, whenever you're very clear, very direct, that, the ghost of you, is in line with you. And that, that was something else that I realized after a while is, very clear and consistent communication on what needs to be done is much more effective than, trying to tailor the message and make everybody feel good. Just tell it like it is. Not everybody's going to like it, but, it's the reality and things happen better. And there's not as much confusion.
That's good, Steve. Thank you for sharing that. No, I agree with you. I think that, I always get back to people only ever do what you expect them to do. And so if you're unclear about the expectations, there's all that ambiguity. They don't really know, right? And humans are humans. They're going to do what they're going to do if they don't have clear expectations. And so yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that when you can be objective, right? Be objective, leave the emotion out, but make the expectations clear. I think it's like having core values in a company, right? When you have solid core values, you can hire and fire on the core values because they're clear. Everybody knows this is how we behave as a company. What does integrity? I don't know what you got, what your core values are. I'm sure they're similar to a lot of people's, but we're talking integrity, right? What does integrity look like? What does that look like for a company? And when employees understand I'm talking about this in my program. That's why it's really fresh on my mind. But when companies understand, like, hey, integrity, this is how we show up with integrity. We do what we say we're going to do. We return phone calls. We keep our promise, and we treat the customer with respect. When they understand that and that's clear to them, then they know how to behave. And when they don't, then you can come in and say, you have that conversation that, this isn't how we do business. Right. And so I think what you're saying is valid 100%.
Yeah, and agree on the core values. It took me probably 3 years before I put the company core values on paper here based on, my expectations, and I was running the place. So yeah, I would say I took too long to put them on paper for my own company. But I would recommend, whenever someone can get those defined for themselves, don't wait as long as I did, and I should know better. It's one of those things I kicked myself in the head for.
Well, and to give you some grace on this, entrepreneurship's a journey. I think no matter if coming into that space, whether even like, I've been an entrepreneur for 23 years. I've been in the space of doing what I want to do. I'm probably totally unemployable at this point. Because I'm so set in my ways. But even as an entrepreneur this far in the game, I'm still learning things every single day. And I tell people all the time, my most significant growth as an entrepreneur has come between 2018 until now. So you're talking, from 1999 up until 2018, I was in this space. And yes, I had growth, but I think that the teacher arrives when you're ready to receive. So you learn the information when you're ready to receive the information, because if it comes at the wrong time, it just becomes unsolicited advice, right? So
yeah, it's just another thing on the list.
Yeah. So I think the beauty of this is that we recognize that this is a process to begin with, right? Like entrepreneurship is a process. And I think we have to give ourselves grace sometimes. I think the beauty in this, Steve, is that when the light bulb goes off, right? And you get something and you're like, dang, I wish I would have thought about that earlier, but it feels good because you arrive in that place and you're like figuring things out, right?
Yes, there's never a dull moment. Yeah. And most of the growth comes from things that you had never planned or whatever. Yes, life is a way of making sure there are always fresh challenges and you get to learn things that you never planned.
Yeah. There was a gal on my show a few weeks ago that she and her husband she got breast cancer. Her husband got pancreatic cancer. And 6 weeks later, her husband died. And so she went to Haiti for a year to travel to basically find the meaning of love. Like she was in this like kind of transformation state. And she wanted to go find the meaning of love. And so she took these different ways to figure this out. But what was interesting is she said that every time she would have like a direct path that she would think would answer her question, whatever love was it being kind, however you show that. She said every time the message would teach her, she would find it in a different way. It wouldn't come in the way that she had set out to do. And she even told this story. You need to go back and listen. It's a funny story. She told this story about this chicken that she was in Haiti. And I think these guys had come from America. I don't know. They were doing something with wells or something. I can't remember the whole story. But long story short, she offered to sleep outside and they let her. And so then she was bitter because she was like, I'm a lady and you're going to leave me sleeping outside while you guys are inside. And so she tells this story about multiple nights this chicken was like coming to her feet and she thought it was like a chupacabra or like something wild and it'd be this stupid chicken, right? And and then later on she went on to say like 2 nights later they think they had the chicken for dinner. But long story short, she said that she learned it was something about like forgiveness, not holding grudges. She learned something through that message to let go of that bitterness because she was angry about it at first, right? And then she was able to work through that. And so I'm with you. I think that when we set out to find things, they never really happen the way we intend to set them out. We find them in the, most most unobvious, if that's a word, ways that when we get the message, right? It's almost like sometimes we have to be humbled, brought to our knees or something. We have those wake up calls and we go, oh, okay, maybe we need to do that maybe it'd be a good idea if we look at our finances in our business. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yep.
I knew you would get that one coming from the engineering standpoint, right? I get it. Cause I've made a joke out of that because that's not my favorite thing to do, like at all. And I'm honest about it. Like if I could get somebody to do all the minutia stuff and for me, I'd be so happy because I'm a creator and I love doing the creation aspect of things and building relationships and all that's my stuff, but we have to know all those pieces.
Yep. It comes with it all. Yep.
Yep. You wear many hats. It's one of the things I shared with you that I was in Mary Kay for 22 years. And, I learned a lot of great business acumen in there. You're forced to because you have to wear many hats. And so we always talked about how we had to be the CEO, we had to be the treasurer, we had to be the consultant, we had to be, the teacher and the trainer. And we had all these various hats. And, I really learned in that, man, this is a lot. Like you got to keep up with a lot of parts. There's a lot of pieces in this puzzle that you have to keep together to keep everything flowing. But another thing I learned working with the mentor that I'm working is that if you don't have a fire burning somewhere, you're not growing. So you got to have a fire burning in some of the areas. If your sales are up, you might be needing to work on your marketing or maybe on your closing or whatever, but there's always something that's probably burning and needs, revamping or fixing or something. So.
Yep. Always.
Yeah. Because you're a business owner. Good stuff. So tell us a little bit. I want to know, because you're doing, like I said, you're doing awesome. I want to know what sets you guys apart, your company. Tell us what sets you guys apart from the rest so our audience knows this.
I would say on our front, I would say what I like to think sets us apart from the best. I don't know. 3 key things is whenever you're looking for us, you can get hold of us, and that's, phone, text, web forms, but, whenever you need to contact us, you can get hold of us. Something I'd learned in the past, whatever, when it gets busy or hot, can't get hold of anybody or, it's difficult. So we like to be easy to get hold of. So that's one thing. 2, whenever a technician comes to your home, I would say communication around that. So I would say, the other bit goes back. You can get hold of us, and then you get communication when you're on schedule. So you get electronic notifications. When the technician's on the way out to your home, you get a bio or photograph. So hopefully that, lets people feel more comfortable of who's coming to their home. I make sure all the technicians have background checks. They all carry licenses. So it confirms they're not an axe murderer. I feel comfortable them coming into your home. They're all a reflection of myself. Then when we're in the home, we're going to listen, make sure we understand what concerns your issues are. Then we're going to do good work. And we'll say, we're not going to be the cheapest. We're going to give you the best value, because that's the other, core thing or whatever. We're not going to band-aid anything. We're going to fix it properly so we can stand behind it. So that's that Toyota aspect or quality that's coming out. And then, we're going to be there or whatever. So if you've got an issue or problem, we stand behind stuff. So, you're going to get follow-up from either us or whatever, or, you can reach out to us anytime. So those are sort of some of that high-level stuff. But,
they're all
being contactable, quality, being professional, and doing what we say. And so that's sort of, so there's no one thing, it's lots of little things, but that's, we'll say, hopefully it adds up to a lot if you're a homeowner.
Yeah, those are all important things, Steve. I think that's so important because, like I said, we're in Texas and we know how hot it gets here in the summer. And then we have this crazy winter weather that just kind of decides when it wants to be cold and then go to hot and then cold again. So it's important that you're able to get a hold of your AC technicians. And I think communication is clear. And that's the one thing I will say on Steve's behalf. I think that, anybody that's looking for quality and good communication, I think you're probably going to be in great space. If they come, they're going to be in great space if they come to you, because I know I already can tell from talking to you on the several times that we've talked that you're very detailed and very conscientious about things, which I think is huge. And, one of the things I always say about my show, when people watch, it's funny because every time I bring a guest on, I like to have you and I talk, and let me do a caveat to this. You and I've talked multiple times before today. So we're already past that. But whenever I bring guests on that I haven't met before, I always like to do these little quick mini 15-minute pre-interviews just so I can get to know the person, because conscientious is high on my value list. It is important to me, which is so interesting because I know you and I have you probably as well as I have studied the different personalities, like the DISC and the Myers-Briggs. You probably have heard of those. And I tend to fall into the DI category, which a lot of times, we're decision makers, but we can be flighty. I'm not really a flighty person. Conscientious is really high on my scale. So it's really weird that I'm over here, but I have this. And oddly enough, every time I bring people on my show, I look for little details, these little things that you're talking about that might just be little details that add up to big things. I look for these little details, like, do they show up on time? Do they do what they say they're going to do? Do their words match their actions? Like, how are they communicating? Just the dialogue, even, like, how are they communicating with me? Are they like sending me a message and pitching me as soon as they send me the message? Or are they saying, hey, I think I have a great story that might add value to your show. You know what I mean? Or, hey, I have something I think your people may enjoy, so I pick up on all these things. And so I would say it's, we're on the same page when we talk about like having quality and making sure that we take care of our people, because how you do your business is really how I like to do mine as well. I like to do what I say I'm going to do, and I like to give my people quality. And I always say I'm probably more invested than they are when I work with them, because I'm 100% in trying to help them get to where they need to go, right? Because I don't win if they don't win, right? It's not good for me if they're
that's
not
it. Yeah.
Right. And customer service
Totally
is
agree.
huge.
It's everything.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I like to call them clients. Customers to me are one and done.
Gotcha.
That's the other thing is we have clients, banks have clients, attorneys have clients. So I will say we want to be their trusted advisors for as long as they're in our service area.
I like it. I like that. Clients versus customers. That's good. Whatever works. I say whatever works for you and your languaging that you guys use. As long as you're in unison, I think you guys all got it. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Steve, I want to ask you one fun other question before we get wrapping this up. This is just a fun question because I think you've had such an incredible journey and just really, I just think it's awesome. What have you learned about yourself in this whole thing and all of this?
In all of this or whatever, stuff that I probably wouldn't have realized when I was younger. But the key thing, if you want something to happen, truly, and it's what you really desire, you will make it happen. So it's, as you say, it's that subliminal thing in the back of your head. 'Cause that way your subconscious is open to learning and seeing opportunities that you're not closed off to. So, if you want things to happen, and especially when you're younger, think big. That's another learning for me is I thought I was thinking big, but, I achieved most of my life goals whenever I was in my early 30s, which I don't know. Then you spend, I don't know if it's midlife crisis or not or whatever, but then you spend a couple of years thinking, I've achieved everything that I'd wanted to when I was younger. So, think big. Or think really big and massive or whatever. That way you don't have to do it twice in your life.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Steve. Finish up. Go ahead.
I was just trying to think if there was anything else. So and then that thinking like a winner. So just figuring out it's going to have to happen. So just how do I get from A to B, and don't be afraid. So I know younger in my career, whenever you're getting held accountable for, hey, we need to make a 5% improvement on productivity or scrap rate quality, hell, make it 40%. But before I used to have to think bottoms up and saying, okay, I need to see all the pieces come together before I'll sign up for that goal. Somewhere in my career that transitioned, and I'm not afraid of, 50, 100% improvement numbers, over a longer period of time or whatever. But, you figure it out, just dive in, start doing things, taking action, and you achieve, that big goal, even though you don't know what that road looks like from A to B. There'll probably be 15, 20 different detours along the way as you figure stuff out.
Yeah. Well, and that's hard too, to go from that. For me, it's easy because I've kind of just always been like that, Steve. I'm like, we got a risk, we got a challenge, let's go for it. Like, I'm ready to go. But it's hard for, some people to make that shift from having to see everything right first and have in that reflection and having enough evidence to go, okay, it's okay to jump on that other side, because our personalities are all very different. And if you studied even like, Tony Robbins' Human Needs, I always talk about that. If security is really high on your scale of 6, that's really tough to go from, okay, we're going to go to certainty to uncertainty, right? Like, I love uncertainty because it's just crazy when it's uncertain, I like a little certainty, but I like uncertainty, right? So I think, when you can come to a place where you can start trusting your intuition and saying, and being okay with risk and saying, that's what that's what this game is about, really. I mean, if you're going to invest in anything, whether it's real estate or, an equity firm, whatever you're going to do, anytime you're doing any of this stuff, business, you're always taking a risk. But if you're not willing to do that, then there's no growth or glory. And, there's none of that. You have no opportunity to even take that if you're not willing to do it. So.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to you.
You can go for it.
Yeah. Congratulations to
and
you. Yeah, thank you. Well, that's why I said Steve. I don't know if I share this with you. I'm the person that goes, okay, the risk. How bad's the risk? Because I'm willing to take the risk. Tell me how bad that risk is, because I'm probably going to take it unless it's really, really bad. Because I go into things assuming that there's probably going to be a problem and there's going to be challenges and this may fail. My job is to figure out how to get around that. So I just automatically look at it that way, and I know that scares people because they're like, I'm, ready, aim, fire, let's go.
They'd say, I don't know, you just get comfortable with it over comfortable being uncomfortable. How's that? I think that was probably the most overused cliche in leadership. Yes. But yeah, there's a lot of truth to it. You just need to practice that uncomfortable feeling or whatever, which is not fun when you first start playing with it. But yeah, over time you learn that it's fun. Boring stayed and true, whatever. Yeah. So if you don't change things up, then you're dying.
Then you're done. Yep, that's so cool, Steve. That's awesome. Well, I want to ask you a couple fun questions. Just so we're going to change this up and then we'll wrap it. These are going to be off the cuff. They're just kind of fun. Sometimes I do these, sometimes I don't. It just depends on what we're talking about. But I think these will be fun with you today. So I think you'll have a little bit of fun with this. Okay, so you're from Northern Ireland. I have no idea what y'all eat over there, but I want to know, what is your favorite food here? Like, what do you like here that you're just like, this is something I really like?
I would say my favorite food these days. So I would say for the most part, I follow a somewhat vegan diet. So these days it is probably a chickpea curry is my favorite food.
Chickpea curry. Interesting. I don't think I've ever had that before. So very cool. Very cool. I think we all follow something. I do low carb, so I do eat some meat, but I don't eat a lot of it. I do a lot of veggies, a lot of green veggies, a lot of those. And I am eating more fruit, but no, that's good. I haven't had that. I'll have to check chickpea curry. I haven't had that. Interesting.
Yeah. So yes, I was a complete carnivore. So probably 10 years ago, if you said the mere thought of giving up meat would have scared the hell out of me.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, it's funny. All my kiddos, well, I take that back. My youngest does eat meat. My two daughters they don't do any meat at all, which is interesting because you met my husband and he grew up on a farm in Montana. So beef is in their bloodline, and it's like, I got two kids that are just like anti-meat eaters at all. So it's kind of funny. Okay. What is your favorite book that you read? Cause I know you've read books. So what is your favorite all time, maybe one that had the most impact on you?
There's probably, I don't know, there's different ones. Do I have to pick one?
Nah, well.
Or can I share multiple?
You can share whatever you want. This is your time.
Okay. Yeah, I would say, I'm thinking it was, Richard Branson's Losing My Virginity. Okay. The original print, which came out, 30 odd years ago?
Okay.
I would say, so that one was, I don't know, I find it inspirational and, just insightful on the entrepreneurial space. There is, I would say, I'm probably going to mess up the title of it. There is the teachings of Taiichi Ono. So for those that don't know, he is the godfather of the Toyota production system. So I would say, a lot of the way that Toyota operates or a lot of the way the world operates these days is based off what he came up with. So he was a true entrepreneur back in, I don't know, what was that, the 50s or whatever, whenever he put that stuff together, and probably had no realization of what it was going to transpire out to and the effects he was going to have on the world. And then we'll say in the last, probably couple of years, the book, it's, I think it's A Life Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham, who is he was the rich dad in the Rich Dad, Poor Dad story. So I would say that was good stuff as well. And then,
the English guy. I'm trying to remember his name. I'll start with Y. That was
Simon Sinek.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the other great author in the background. Pull a blank. It's a while since I've read his stuff. That's not very helpful. So yeah, I'm professional. I'll probably come back to me once I stop thinking.
Yeah, no, I'm impressed that you remember those because I've read so many books too. And it's funny when people ask me that, I always talk about like my number one. I love Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's probably my all-time favorite book. But then I am a big John Maxwell fan. So I like all of his because I just think they're short, sweet. They get the message across and they're all about leadership. And so I'm impressed that you remembered all those, but thanks you for sharing those because the only one that I know that was the Simon Sinek one, all those other ones you mentioned, I'd never even heard of those. So thanks for sharing those. You can get a lot of really good book lists off this show when I ask this question for people. You find out some of them you'll hear, like some of the like Atomic Habits will come up a lot of times over and over, but that was great because those have never been said on my show. So I know. So thank you.
Yeah, and if you want, I can try and dig up some of the covers or whatever and send them to you. So
you can do that. Awesome. I want to check them out. No, I like Simon Sinek too. I'm using building out my program. I am using some of his work because he talks about like finite and infinite games and his other stuff about leading with core values, how they have to be action verbs and not just statements because your people don't know what they are if they don't know how they look. Like basically like when we were talking about integrity earlier in the show, right? Like what's integrity look like? It might look different to you and me. And I doubt it. I think you and I have kind of similar core values, but to some people, integrity might just mean I get out of bed, Yeah. It could be different. So this has been great, Steve. So if our audience wanted to learn a little bit more about you, maybe they need to find you and your services because they're here locally, where do we want to send them?
I would say probably the best place would be, let's say, our website, which is www.scm for Southern Comfort Mechanical, DFW, Dallas Fort Worth, AIR.com.
Perfect. We'll make sure too, when this goes out, I'll put the website in there so that they know how to find you and we'll get you connected.
If anybody's or just call.
Yeah, and if anybody's in the area and needs some great service, Steve's your guy for sure. Give him a call. I think it's great, Steve, that you're growing and continuing to grow because I know that affects, the people that you're working with, and that's what keeps the company growing. And so I think that's an important thing in this entire message is the continual learning and progression. Because when a leader stops growing, I think that everything stalls, and that's when companies actually go stagnant. So I think that the thing that I like about you is that you continue to keep growing and evolving and really trying to, keep things right. And that starts with us, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Fish rots from its head is the great Japanese saying. That's totally true.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. All right. Well, this has been fun. So thank you so much for sharing with our guests. So appreciate you. Do you want to say to our listeners, of course, if you enjoy our show, please be sure you give us a rating on iTunes. Go check us out on Facebook. And then also hit that subscribe button on the YouTube so we can keep sharing all these awesome stories. And we want to leave you guys with a final parting thought. In order to live the extraordinary, you must start. And every start begins with a decision. You guys take care, be safe, be kind to one another. We will see you next time.